Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me. Please consider this position on the board from 1995 Intel Grand Prix between Vasily Ivanchuk with the white pieces and Alexander Maurizevich with the black pieces. All right. Uh, we can see here that white is better because he has an extra pawn, as you can see in the center, right on the E file. And also, he has more space on the king side. All right. From these features in the position, we can derive a plan uh, for white in order to attempt to win here. So, what is white's plans? Well, white's plans to neutralize the dark square bishop by playing the pawns to light squares, right? This is our general plan. Okay. Also, to free the king in the corner, right? Because that's the worst piece in the position for white. Free the king in the corner via g3 or g4. And also, we want to bring the king in the center as a result. All right. Now, black being worse is going to try to defend. And basically, black, of course, would like to trade pawns. All right, so black strategy, of course, is also to bring his king to the center and also to the queen side so that he could facilitate moves like b5, trade off as many pawns as possible, and then possibly, if need be, sacrifice his bishop for one or two pawns and try to hold the game. All right, so black is in some trouble, but if he's able to realize his goals, perhaps he can hold the game. So let's see how the strategies for both sides played out here. So Vanchuk had first move he played with the white pieces, g6. All right, he gains more space on the king side, but what he does by gaining space is he makes it more difficult for black to get his king to the center of the board. Also, what he does is he places his pawn on a white square, which makes it invulnerable to the dark squared bishop. King g8 by Maurizevich, g4 by Ivanchuk. Right, again, placing the pawn on a light square, clarifying the position. Right, he's attacking the pawn. And if Maurizevich plays a move like h4 or something, okay, that pawn is just stuck there in the dark square. It's not going anywhere. Again, all of the white pawns on light squares, save the one on b2. So Maurizevich just simply trades it off. The move also has the added benefit of freeing the king via the h1 a8 diagonal. H takes g4, h takes g4, king f8. And notice how Maurizevich has to make that extra move to get his king freed from the back rank. Right, he can't play king to f7 because the pawn is on g6. King g2 with tempo. Bishop c5, and now e5. Another interesting idea that white can use is bringing the knight on d5 or f5 using those squares as outposts for the knight. But here, he simply takes more space in the center, and he plans on just simply bringing his king along the light square diagonal. e5, king e7, king f3, and now king d7. All right, king e4, king c6. So you can see black trying to implement his plan of playing a move like b5. Here, powerful move by Ivanchuk, immediately clarifying the position and for all intents and purposes, ending the counterplay of black here. Black does not want to trade the bishop, all right, but he's given a dilemma by Ivanchuk, which is if he doesn't allow the bishop trade, white is going to put his knight on e6 and threaten the g7 pawn, and there will be no proper defense for it. Maurizevich is forced to trade. Bishop takes d4. Another idea, again, for white is to play a move like knight g3, utilizing the f5 square as an outpost. So, for example, knight g3, b5, a takes b5, king takes b5, knight f5, challenging the g7 pawn, bishop f8, knight d4 check, knight king c4, and now knight e6. And you can see black is lost in that position also. If bishop f8 right away, same position arises. b5, a takes b5, king takes b5, knight d4, and the same thing. Ivanchuk plays a move that is just as good, knight d4. And now bishop takes d4. This forces Maurizevich into a totally lost king pawn ending. If he plays king d7 here, for example, then just king d5, and you have the same themes. Pawn going to e6, right? Check, gaining more space. Knight going to f5, and attacking the g7 pawn. So bishop takes d4, king takes d4, king d7, king d5, and Moro is placed in sort of a zugzwang situation shortly. King e8, king d6, king d8, b3, king 8, e7, and Maurizevich resigned. The reason why he resigned is because after e7, again, the zugzwang is in effect. And what's going to happen is white is going to wind up queening and mating at the same time. And I'm sure Ivanchuk saw this as well as Maurizevich did. So now that you saw that white was basically winning right at this starting position, now I want to take you back to the earlier phases of the game so that you can see how exactly Maurizevich come to this lost position. All right. This is another good way to analyze games, is starting from the end. So now that you saw the position, let's go back to the opening. Ivanchuk opened with d4, d5, c4, knight c6 from Maurizevich, a known Chagoran's defense specialist. This opening is a rare guest at top levels, and especially in the 90s, you did not really see it that much. Maurizevich is probably the strongest grandmaster, out of the modern masters, right? I'm not counting Chagoran himself, but out of the modern masters to seriously employ this. I could throw Smyslov in there also. All right, Smyslov was actually world champion. All right, but out of the modern masters, let's say 90s and up, Maurizevich being over 2,700 and employing this rare opening. There are many responses here that white can choose. He can play knight f3, he can play c takes d5, or he can play knight c3, which was employed in the game. And here also black has several responses. D takes c4, which is Maurizevich recommendation, and what he plays can lead to by transposition positions that you will see in the Queen's Gambit accepted, and also in some variations Goring Gambit, which is very interesting. All right. D5. Here, there's two critical moves, knight e5 and knight a5. All right, we're not going to get into the deep analysis of it, but Maurizevich likes to play the move e5, knight to e5. This position takes on similarities to Alekhine defense, but from the queen's side, if you will. All right, and you have an extra pawn to boot on c4. All right, of course, white doesn't have to push. He can play knight f3, right, taking more firm control over the e5 square, and then planning to push d5. All right, and forcing the knight to go to a5, but that's another video. So d5, knight e5, Ivanchuk plays f4. So he's going to take the big center. All right, he's taking up the challenge thrown down by black, right? Black is arguing that, hey, your big center is liability and overextended, and white is saying, hey, I'm going to use this center to drive your pieces off the board, hinder your development, etc., attack you, and checkmate you. Knight b6, a4, a5. It's important to keep that knight on b6. Okay, can't let white get too much space. Bishop e3, and here comes the counterattack from black against the center. Ivanchuk parts with this dark squared bishop. This is a big commitment here, because you can see that yes, white is taking some pressure off of the center, of black's attack on the center by exchanging that knight. But you can see also that white is weakening itself around the dark squares, therefore leaving black with the dark squared bishop to dominate the board can backfire at some point. C takes b6, bishop takes c4, and now bishop b4. And this is exactly what black is counting on. Black is taking on somewhat of a compromised pawn structure in exchange for having the dominance over the dark square, also having the bishop pair, and some good piece activity. This is the major theme in the Chagorans, is activity of the pieces, free piece play. Knight f3, knight f6. Each side castles. D takes, bishop takes e6, bishop takes e6, f takes e6. All right, so you can see the pawn structure is better for white. Okay, but black has this dark square bishop remaining, and as white has some weaknesses around the dark squares. And of course, black is going to focus and zero in on this and try to exploit that. So queen b3, king gets off the diagonal. He's not worried about this this pawn on e6, because after bishop takes c3, then the pawn on e4 will fall eventually, after say like the rook coming to e8 or something like that. So Ivanchuk takes his time. Knight g5, he just puts more pressure on the e6 pawn. Knight g4, not an oversight. Knight takes e6, but this is Maurizevich plan. He plays queen h4. Things start looking very scary, right? After all, if black could just play bishop c5, he would be winning here. But right now, the knight on e6 is guarding against that square, and also black is threatening checkmate. So after h3, he guards against the checkmate here, and then Maurizevich just simply plays rook a e8. The reason why he's able to play rook a e8 is because if that knight moves from e6, then black is going to be winning. For example, oops, sorry about that. So for example, if he plays knight takes f8, this allows the c5 square to be available to the bishop, and you can see the weakness on the dark square being exploited to the fullest. King h1, queen g3, and the game is over. If rook f2, queen takes, king h1, queen takes f4, the game is over. So it shows you the dangers inherent in the position, and that black is basically only like one mistake away from actually just winning the game, not even just getting a slight like an advantage or something like that. All right, and this is a testament to the piece activity available in this defense. Of course, Ivanchuk sees all of these things, and he doesn't take the rook, but instead he plays knight e2. And the idea with knight e2 is just to play a move like knight d4, and then of course he can then take the rook, right? Because he's blocking the action of the bishop. So for example, if white had another move, he would play that and then follow up with that. Here, Maurizevich, right, being young and ambitious, I think he was 17 at the time, He plays rook takes e6. So it makes sense, right? Get rid of the protector of c5 and then win the game. However, it's not that simple, because after queen takes e6, this gives white protection on the g4 square, and you'll see why that's important and why this doesn't win, right? Because it looks like it should win, but it doesn't. So bishop c5 check, king h1, and now Morrow has to play h5. The reason why is because after knight f2 check, just simply king h2. All right, and the knight can't return to g4 because the queen would just capture on g4. All right, so just that little subtlety there in the position, right? If we compare that position to this one right here, right? Notice the queen is not on e6 there, right? After knight takes f8, bishop c5, king h1, queen g3, you can see the difference, because black actually has time to play queen g3 and threaten mate. Now with the queen on e6, you can clearly see that the knight would just be captured there in this variation. So notice with the queen on e6, knight f2 check, king h2, that there's black doesn't have the time. Well, black tried to just and of course the knight, and remember also the knight is on e2 also, guarding the g3 square. So queen can't play itself to g3. So there's just some little differences there that keep black from being able to finish the game. So Morrow plays h5. This anchors the knight there and prepares the queen to be able to be free. Ivanchuk plays rook to the center. Rooks come off the board. Queen d8. And now you can see the knight is protected from capture, because h5 protects the knight from the queen g4 capture. Black didn't have to worry about the capture from the h pawn, because he can return and play queen h4, which would be checkmate. However, with the queen on e6, he had to worry about the queen being able to capture the knight. So the h pawn anchors the knight there securely. Queen d5 offering the trade, and queen h4, queen g5. Of course, natural to want to get rid of black's dynamic activity. This is a general rule also that you might want to put in your memory banks, is that when you have a static advantage, for instance, your upper pawn, right, you have better position, you want to try to reduce the dynamic activity of your opponent as much as possible. Okay, if all he can do is checkmate you, you want to try to reduce that, right, and simplify the game as much as possible. So queen g5 is in that spirit. Knight f2 check. Rook takes. Now queen takes g5. This is all forced. Bishop takes g5. I'm sorry, f takes g5, and bishop takes f2. And voila, we are back at the position that we showed to you at the beginning of the game. And now you have seen how the game progressed and how it ended. And you know that this position is lost for black for all intents and purposes. All right, so the final thing I want to show you now is the improvement, right? In other words, or ask ourselves rather, could black have done any better? All right, and hopefully my analysis will convince you that black could have done better. So here, if the knight takes e6, this is move 17, Morrow played queen h4. Remember that. It looks like a fantastic move, threatening mate, right? Bishop c5 in some instances. However, this move proved to be a little bit too ambitious, as you saw Ivanchuk smoothly defend here and eventually turn the tides of the position around and wind up going to a winning ending. So here, the improvement that I found is just simply bishop c5, where knight takes c5 is just forced. If king h1 here, black is just winning. Now queen h4, threatening mate, and queen g3, and then there's the mate threat, of course, h2, and black, white doesn't have enough time to defend here, right? If he takes the knight on c5, then just simply queen h2 mate. All right, and if he takes the knight on g4, then just simply queen h4 mate. All right, so this is pretty much forced. So knight takes c5, and now black just plays a nice in-between move, or zugzwang. Queen d4, king h1, and now b takes c5, h3, knight f2 check, king h2, knight takes e4, knight takes, queen takes, rook a e1, and queen b4. This just facilitates the trade of queens here. And my analysis goes on, but of course there can be like alternate moves and etc. But I think for the most part that black has obtained equal game. All right. So my analysis continues. This trade of rooks. Then you go into this rook ending. Black has just enough activity to where he's able to hold his own successfully without any problems here. All right. And of course it looks scary, but with that pawn on b3, even if white is the queen here, all black has to do is capture on c8. After rook takes c8, b2, and the pawn is unstoppable thanks to the double pawns actually. So rook takes b5, rook c8, rook takes b3, rook c7, and then you can see the clear draw here. So that's my improvement in the position, is that black, has to play in a less ambitious way and just play simply bishop c5, acquiescing to these exchanges here. Instead, he went for queen h4, which is understandable because it does look very dangerous, threatens checkmate. All the pieces get activated right after rook a e8, so it looks like white is in some danger here, but he's just able, perhaps by the skin of his teeth, to play some subtle moves like knight e2 and turn the position around. And now you can see how Ivanchuk was able to get to this winning endgame. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you learned a lot. Please comment in the links below. Please hit the thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe button. And also, please check the links below. There's a donation button whereby you can support my work on this channel. If it has been beneficial to you in any way, or you're just simply entertained here on the channel. And also below that, there's links where there's books and DVDs for sale. Okay. There's a book below that you might see next to Vasily Ivanchuk in the photo that is called The Chagoran's Defense According to Alexander Maurizevich. This is a book written by Maurizevich, so it carries great weight and authority with me, not because he's just a very strong grandmaster, but because he actually has played and practiced this opening for many years. So if you are interested in the Chagoran's Defense, I suggest that you take a look at that book and purchase it. It's not just analysis and computer lines, but he actually explains why he plays certain lines and over other continuations. For instance, he gives the argument of 4 knight e5 as opposed to 4 knight a5, which is another critical line in the Chagorans. right? And the knight a5 line black must be prepared to give up a piece for 3 pawns. Okay, now yes, compensation, but again, if you read his book, he gives great explanations, um, and shows a very deep understanding that he does a good job passing on to the reader, um, uh, in that book. So I definitely recommend that. The final thing I want to say is also Chess Audiobooks is on Live Chess, same name, Chess Audiobooks, and Chess Audiobooks is also on chess.com. So if you want to play a game, like I'm available, taking on all challenges, right? So if you see me on there, look me up, request me as a friend on there. I'll be glad to play you, um, and just have some fun. So with that, I look forward to hearing your comments on this video. I hope you learned something. And if you want to hear more about the Chagorans, just let me know, or more videos in this particular opening or that system, or more videos on the end game, right? I've had a lot of positive feedback on some of my end game videos. Let me know, okay? And also on my channel, I post some links. I have a compilation video of all of Alexander Maurizievich's Chagoran games up to about 2017 in a video called The Chagoran, according to Alexander Maurizevich. So basically, I have the Chagoran's defense covered on this particular channel. So with that said, once again, thank you for listening, participating. Again, if you know who the player is up there next to Maurizevich, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be glad to shout you out on the next video. And with that, thank you for listening.